Receiving the gifts or the value that others give to us should be easy. Should be just a simple thank you, acknowledge it as we discussed yesterday, and then accept it. Yet sometimes it isn't as easy as it seems. We're going to explore the challenges around receiving others' gifts and more on episode 735 of today's Antidote. So while we open our show, give a thought to what are some of the challenges that you face around receiving gifts from others. We'll see how it matches up with ours. All that and more on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well also. This middle of the week, hump day Wednesday.
We got a little bit of a delay. Do you feel the delay? Do you hear the delay?
No.
Oh, okay, good. That's just me.
You're not going to disappear on me again, are you?
Technology, no way of telling.
No way to tell. Or it might be me disappearing on you. Either how.
Could happen.
Yes.
Part of the fun.
Part of the challenges that sometimes we face and all the things.
When we get our big opportunity, when we're on that big network program, they'll have all those tech people telling us what to do and counting us down and all that. We won't have to worry about these things.
Yes. Yes, that is
I'll
true.
miss them. I'll miss these days when we're...
You'll miss the challenges?
Yeah, I will.
There is something about it that is a little different than what it might be like. Not that I really know for sure, but I can imagine what it might be like if you had a whole bunch of people producing a show. And with different camera angles and all that type of stuff, it would definitely be different.
When I was in college studying communications, we had a studio at Towson University, and we had to play different roles in one class. And it was fascinating to see that, when you were the director, all you had to do was pick which camera angle. And when you were the producer, you had to figure out what the content was going to be. And when you were the talent, I thought the talent job was the easiest because all you had to do was just read the script off the teleprompter.
Because that's easy to do.
No one ever that's an acquired skill. That's an acquired skill. Yes.
And you had better hope that the person who is moving the teleprompter screen moves it at approximately the same speed with which you speak.
And didn't change the words. Because there was always that time that they would change the words.
Or that you pronounce the word that was there.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. No position. All positions have their challenges. There is no doubt about that. All right, everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where each week Bob and I have a conversation around a topic. This week's topic, as I mentioned, is receiving others' gifts, appropriate for the time of year. And today we're going to discuss the challenges around that. As I mentioned, you would think there wouldn't be that many. And yet, just like on-air talent, that seems so easy. There are challenges along the way. We'll get into that and more. And as we have that conversation, we look forward to you sharing your thoughts and ideas on whatever social media you happen to be following us on, whether it is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or
LinkedIn Live, baby.
Yes, LinkedIn Live, baby. And we might want to just throw this out there because Bob and I have been discussing this. And when the new year arrives, our plan.
We shouldn't tell them that we're thinking of buying LinkedIn and we're going to change it to LinkedIn Live, baby. We shouldn't tell people that. That's our stealth operation.
And a big announcement coming.
Yeah, could be on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't tip them off.
I won't tip them off. What I will share is that, we're considering moving this just to one platform, just inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. so that if you want to get the whole content, you have to join us here. Otherwise, you'll get snippets of it in all the other social media platforms. More on that to come before the year end. So again, we welcome.
I want to break in. Judy says good morning to both of us.
And well, good morning, Judy.
There you go. And Merry Christmas. So back at you, Judy.
Thanks, cousin Judy. My cousin Judy.
Oh, cousin Judy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Nice to have her along for the morning.
Is she up in New York or is she elsewhere in the country?
Yes, she lives in Wellsville, New York.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't give that away on TV. Yes, she's in upstate New York. Anyhow.
You're not Elon Musk, who, where if people give your location, he takes you off the platform. I don't think. Yeah.
You don't think that's the challenge? Okay. Yeah. And I think she'd be okay with that. Many people in upstate New York would know who she is, so they would easily be able to tell you that that's where she's from. Anyhow.
And I heard upstate New York. I have no idea. That's just like a big thing, like the tundra to me.
We like it that way. It's kind of like Seattle. You know how they're Washington, they say that it rains there all the time because they really don't want all those outsiders around. That's right. Kind of like upstate New York. Is if you don't know, wise. You don't need to come. You can stay away. Anyhow, so we welcome your thoughts and ideas as we go through our conversation. And the conclusion of that conversation, Bob and I will each offer our one thing. The one thing that we hope, if you're struggling with receiving others' gifts, you're finding that there are challenges and that's getting you stuck or overwhelmed or frustrated, we hope that what we offer today will help you take that next step and get you back on your pathway to your own unique success that you desire. Of course, if you have an antidote that you would like to share, we'd love for you to do that as well. Just feel free to put it in the comments. Before we dive into our conversation, though, each morning, Bob and I do our celebrations. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today?
This is going to sound really silly, but I made really good chocolate chip cookies 2 days ago, and they are yummy. And I try to eat gluten-free as much as possible. So I actually made gluten-free chocolate chip cookies. So I am way excited. They're in the freezer. I made about 50 of them, and I've eaten 2. That will change today. Dramatically.
Really more than 2?
I will eat more than 2. Yes.
That's all right. That's good for you. I like that celebration. I like the fact that you freeze them as well.
Yes. And I tried a different recipe last week. Didn't work so well. So this has been a work in progress. There were some challenges. And then I tried a recipe maybe 3 weeks ago when it was raining. And I think the rain affected the process. The humidity and all that good stuff.
Fair enough. My question is, how much dough do you eat while you're making it?
0.
Really?
None. Yeah, I'm afraid that, raw eggs will kill you or whatever. Even though back when Rocky first came out, I can remember, blending up raw eggs and just tossing them back because that was how you grew muscle and became, the ripped person that I am.
Fair enough.
I thought sure I gave you a comment.
That wasn't going to judge. Just going to accept your comment and continue to move forward.
That's impressive. So what are you celebrating?
So I'm celebrating that, probably 3 or 4 months, I had someone reach out to me, and they're working in a nonprofit organization. They do the fundraising for them, and they kind of are a one-person shop. And so they were like, they've been doing their role for a number of years and felt like they had a good handle, and at the same time felt like they could be doing some different things. They felt like they were just kind of just repeating over and over and over what they were doing, getting results that were beneficial, raising money for the organization, yet they were looking just to get a little audit of their program and maybe a little bit of coaching around it. And it's a great person. I've worked with them on some other projects, some presentations, and they're part of an organization out in Western Maryland. And I know that it's been a busy time since I sent them some information. And I've tried not to be overly bothersome and checking in. And out of the sort of out of the blue, they reached out to me yesterday and said, hey, I'm starting to able like refocus. And if you can send me a new timeline of what this might look like for the new year, I'm ready to get started. So I'm excited about that future project coming along and the opportunities to help someone really take a closer look at what they do. And hopefully I can get them to evaluate and learn from it rather than measure it, or rather than judge it based on the results that they've received. So I'm excited about that potential and the opportunity to work with this person.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Got it all going on. Tom Brush, man about town, who even knows parts of upstate New York.
That's where I grew up. I hope I know parts of upstate New York.
So, shall we hop into the topic?
Let's dive into it. Challenges to receiving others' gifts.
Receiving others' gifts. Oh, sorry, I was good. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go.
We're talking about receiving others' gifts, which can be challenging to some of us. And I talked to a couple of people yesterday who said it can be difficult for them as well. And they described to me some of the same challenges. One, recognizing the person's gifts, because what someone might think is their gift may not be the gift that you think it is. For instance, I've been known to crack a joke at a time when someone's just not in the space to enjoy a joke. So while I think that's a lovely gift, they might go, you know what, dude, not so much. So there's that possibility. I think often we're so in the moment trying to figure something out that we don't take the time to think about the gifts that someone is providing us because we're so busy trying to figure it out. So there have been countless times where you and I have talked through an issue that one of us has had and the other's like, well, have you thought about this? Oh, wow. No, I hadn't. And you're so busy solving the problem that you're not going, wow, I really appreciate that you heard me, that you thought through this, and you gave me this little thing that shifts the whole process in a new direction. And so you have that possibility. And then the third one that someone brought up was in receiving someone else's gifts we often compare ourselves to other people. So why couldn't I do that myself? And I go through this with people who play guitar. There's someone who I get to hear play guitar every week or two, and he's young, he's great. And rather than just take in the gift of this beautiful guitar playing, I'm like, why can't I do this? Why can't I be that? I've logged some time. Oh, I wish I'd gotten a guitar when I was 14. I'd be so much further along. And so this gift of beautiful music gets lost on me because I'm playing the comparison game. So those are the three challenges that jump out at me. How about you?
Well, I think one of the challenges is that people don't see them as a gift. And oftentimes I think, especially when someone shares something that we don't necessarily agree with, have a different opinion on, or don't see the value of. And I think that, that's one of the challenges, that people only consider gifts things that they value. How many times have you received a physical gift from someone present that you open up and you're like, what am I ever going to do with this? So just as an example, as some people know, I don't really drink. Actually, I don't drink. Not really. I don't drink. And yet,
I didn't know that there was a gray area there. You're pretty emphatic when I'm around you, but okay.
So, and I think it's fairly well known at one of the roles that I was at for 10 years. And yet the head of our division would always give me some sort of alcoholic drink. And I think I just was able to get to the point where I could appreciate the fact that they were doing something for me anyways. It wasn't required. They didn't have to do it. But each year in the holidays, they would give me some sort of, and again, since I'm not really that up to date on all of what I don't even know that I know what it was. And so I think that initially it was hard to accept that as a gift. I was just like, Okay, whatever. I guess he doesn't really pay that much attention to me at all the cocktail parties that we're at, or events. And I think after a while, I got to the point where I was able to stop thinking about that and just accept the fact that this was a nice thing for them to do, that they didn't have to. And it was the thought that they were thinking of me, not what the actual thing was. And I think with physical gifts, we recognize that sometimes. It's a little easier because we do sometimes get gifts that we're not sure what we're going to do with. I think it's the non-physical gifts that we receive that are hard, especially when we don't necessarily agree with them. I think that there are times when a boss or a supervisor or even an employee says something to us about something we have either said or done, and we don't see it as a gift. And yet, in reality, it might be one of the best gifts we might ever get, because it might keep us from running into future challenges along the way. And I think it's one of those things, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, that you don't necessarily recognize its value until later. And then, in some regards, you may have missed that opportunity. And I think nowadays, when people are concerned more about being right or wrong than acknowledging the value that someone provides them, even if they don't necessarily agree with it, or they don't have to share the same perspective, it's hard to see that as a gift. And yet, many times, those things, if they have any sort of impact at all on what's real for us, it's a gift. Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense. And I think that's where you get at the real core issue. Isn't really anything anyone does is really a gift one way or another, because assuming someone doesn't do something malicious, if you're not going out trying to hurt someone else, then you're trying to offer your gifts. With this program, we try to offer the gift of our knowledge, experience, perspective. I've had people say to me, yeah, I listened to you guys once or twice. I don't really like it. Okay. That doesn't mean it's not a gift. It just means it's not a gift to that person. Now, there would be a point in time where I'd be like, well, this person is a complete, knucklehead because they don't understand what a great gift this is. But now I've gotten to a place where it's like, probably not the gift for them right now. Could be a gift later. Could be a gift. I see it differently than they see it. And who knows? And I think so often when we're sharing our gifts, we're expecting a certain reaction. And I think that's a challenge to receiving gifts, because there have been times where I'm like, I want to say something to someone, give them part of my knowledge, experience, and perspective, and I hold back because I'm afraid that they won't receive it.
Sure.
In a positive light. And I think that's another part of receiving gifts is if the sender doesn't feel comfortable, I don't do it as much now, but I used to be really good at, like, if I saw a newspaper article that I thought someone would be interested in, I'd send it to them. Like, you go back to the mail days, I would literally put it in an envelope and mail it to the person. And sometimes they'd be like, yeah, why'd you send me this? Other times be like, oh, I didn't see this. That's so crazy. How'd you remember that I brought that up 3 months ago? It's easier now with email that you can just, here's the link to an article. And sometimes someone's like, I don't know why you sent me this article. What were you thinking? And it's like, okay, I guess you're no longer interested in, 18 great ways to make stuffing for Thanksgiving, even though 3 days ago you told me you were struggling to find a new Thanksgiving stuffing recipe. Okay, I guess you're over it. And I could be really hurt by the fact that they're like, why'd you send this? Or I can go, you know what? This is just what I do. And if someone doesn't receive it, it doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't cause them harm. It's easy. Hit the delete button and move on. Just like if you don't like this program, hey, there are a million podcasts out there. There are a million broadcasts. Go find your bliss. No problem. I do it. I mean, there are times when I'm listening to a podcast and I just go, not interested, moving on. Even if someone recommends it to me, I'll listen for 5 minutes and then be like, yeah, this just doesn't fit me. I'm out. Now, I will tell the person, hey, I really appreciate you thinking of me. because that's what they've really done, right? That's what sending a newspaper article is. I'm thinking about the person. It's not that I'm saying you have to endorse this article and what it says exactly perfectly, or else you're no longer my friend. It's just I saw something that would be of interest to you. Just like if you're walking down the street with someone and you're going by a store and you're like, oh, look at those boots. You'd look really good in those boots. Sometimes a person goes, hey, you know what? I would. Other times they go, yeah, I'm not feeling it. The heel's too high, the this, the that, whatever. And you're like, oh, I didn't have all that information. Based on the information I had, you said you wanted red boots. Those look like nice red boots. Now you're telling me, well, red boots and they have to have this and this and this and this, which is fine. And I think we qualify people's gifts that way a lot. If it's not spot on perfect, it's not really a gift. Oh, you know what? I wanted this and you got me 80% of this.
Yeah, I think they make a judgment on the gift. And again, whether that's physical, whether it's an action, whether it's something someone says, it's become so easy, or that has become the norm, I think, to judge the gift rather than, as you just mentioned, to say they happen to think of me. Now, you could wonder, like, well, why do they think of me in that way? And as you also said, I think it's because maybe they don't have all the information. Maybe they don't know that you're allergic to gluten. Maybe they don't know that, that you have some belief that you don't share or that you share, and they just wanted to share a different perspective. I think that's one of the challenges.
Or they just see you differently, right?
Sure.
Not good or bad, just based on what I know about you. I don't know everything about you. What I know about you, there are times that I make assumptions. Sometimes those assumptions may or may not be right. I picture you growing up in some really tiny podunk town, like the towns that they have in every Hallmark Christmas movie. And you guys all decorate together and you have the nice center area where you come together that's the picture I have of where you grew up. It could be very urban, but that's the perception I have of it. And so if I make that calculation, and that's because when you say upstate New York, I just picture no one in their right mind would want to live in a snowy place like that. So I'm making assumptions which can bite me if I'm like, oh, Tom probably would like a gift, of a little town square. Like, okay. Or I might make a joke like, oh, you're just a small town guy. And you're like, really, dude? We had everything. I live in Maryland. I see where you grew up. It's not that much different. I don't know. We don't know all that. And I think that's where it can be a challenge to receiving the gift, because I might make a joke about small towns and you're like, really? Why are you saying that? Rather than exploring it with the person, realizing that the missing piece of it is the common ground. No, actually, where I grew up was a bigger town than you realized. And even though it is upstate New York, don't picture it as, vast pockets of snow and no human beings for like 50 miles, because, that's not upstate New York. You might want to go up there and see. Then my experience and my knowledge and my perspective are enhanced if I choose. And if Correct. You choose to share back the gift of, hey, Bob, let me tell you about my small town.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, that's the piece of it, is that so often we again judge the gift that we received rather than considering it as value that they are trying to share. And I think
it's timely because your cousin Judy is offering, growing up in a small town was the best, right, Tom?
I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think that there's, and again, that's based on my knowledge, experience, and perspective. There are other people who didn't like it at all. And, I think I think that's the thing, is like we all have our own, what's real for us is different for everyone based on what we think. And while I found value in that, others may not have. And it may be because they saw something else and they made a comparison to that. I think,
or they discover it later, right? You go back to your family home for the holidays and you're like, wow, you know what? it's kind of cool that I could drive down the street and Mrs. Richardson waves to me and Mr. McGillicuddy and the Johnsons are right out on their porch, with their pipe. And I've got I've got quite the vision of it. But that sensibility that you lose sight of it until you go do something else, and then you come back to it. And I think it's the same thing with gifts in the workplace. Person says something to us or they give us something. I had someone send me off to a training course that I thought was a complete waste of my time. 3 months later, I'm like, wow, I see a difference here. That was a real gift that they gave me a day to go to this workshop that I was like, really? You want me to learn this? But I saw how it fit in, that they saw the gift long before I did.
Sure. And like other things, sometimes we don't always know the results of the gift that we're going to give.
Right.
And yet it's more about that they were thinking that this might add value for you. And I think so often that's, we receive things through our own lens, which usually causes us to make some sort of judgment around it. And I think so often if one of our lenses isn't with the perspective of they are trying to add value to me in my life or my work or whatever I'm trying to do, not that they're trying to tell me something secretly that I'm not good at the skill set by sending you to a workshop or sharing.
And that's how I took it. I'm like, wow, they really think I'm a failure at my job. I'm probably going to get fired if I don't go to this workshop.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's because you were thinking about it in a different light, which, and I think the same thing when we share our experiences. Sometimes it can really add value, and other times people don't see how that's relevant to what's going on, or it's, from something like the number of times I've heard people talk about, having worked at some small colleges. When you talk to people who work at these large universities with all sorts of resources and they come in and this is what they expect, and that's not what we have to offer. I think they immediately start to make judgments about, what it is until they get in there and see that there's value in the way we have done things. And yes, could we learn from others? Of course. And just because it's done somewhere else doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work here. And I think that there's the opportunity for both in that situation, for one to start to understand how things are different. And for those who've been there to understand that maybe there is another way to look at it. Even if it's not exactly the way this person shared it, it could have value if we take the time to see it as value and consider it and see what impact it has on us.
Are you ready, Tom, for your challenge of the day? That's right, challenge of the day. What's your one thing?
I think my one thing about receiving others' gifts is, and the challenges that come with it, is that I think we so often think of us first. And we think like, sorry.
Oh, you took mine. I should have gone first.
And that in doing that, we forget about why this person might be sharing this with us and seeing it as having value without any judgment on the value of it. Then we get to determine what's the impact that it has on us. And I think that the other piece with that is that value changes for us. The results of that value is different. And I think that if we can accept it as someone who was being kind enough to share their value with us. And again, as long as they're not being malicious, they're not trying to hurt us, they're doing this with all the best of intentions, that there is value there. We may not see it now. And even if the only value is they were willing to care enough about me to share, that might be enough for us to make sure that, as we talked about yesterday, that we acknowledge that this is a gift. We might not always appreciate it. We might not always like it in the moment, yet it is still a gift that they have chosen to share with us. And we should find a way to at least consider how this might impact what's real for us.
Yeah, you said we need to acknowledge it, and what was the other word you used? I can't think of it. But I think we need to accept it as a gift first and foremost, even if it doesn't feel like a gift. The fact that someone shares something with us, anything, is a gift, because they don't have to.
Correct.
You and I don't have to take the time to be like, hey, I heard you say that you were doing this thing tomorrow. Do you want to run through it with me? Do you want to share this with me? Do you want to do this, do that? There are times where it's like, oh, I really don't want to do this, Tom. I know what I'm doing. And then I go, well, you know what? Every single time I run through something with Tom, it enhances it greatly. So I probably should take the opportunity here as a gift. And I think so often we don't do that. We're like, oh, it's one more thing on my plate. I got to do this thing with Tom. He's going to find something wrong with it. And we don't put ourselves out there. I think we do that a lot. Your cousin Judy says, great podcast, guys. Wow. I'll take it as a gift of looking at things differently. Look at that. Very nice.
And I think one of the challenges, we talked about this yesterday, is the word gift. I think so often we make these assumptions, I think I mentioned this yesterday or Monday, that the gift is almost in correlation with good. Like that if they're giving us a gift, it is something that we are going to find of such great value. And I think that the value is always for us seemingly that it is going to be quote unquote positive. Mm-hmm. Rather than the gift might be that somebody shares a hard fact with you that is not easy to hear. Maybe you don't even accept it in the moment, and yet somewhere down the line you realize that it had more value than you thought. And I think that's, sometimes so maybe if we change that word to just value, the people are sharing the value that they have. They're sharing their knowledge, experience, and perspective. Could be very different from ours, might not land with us very well, might be the most important thing we ever hear. I think if we're just open that they are sharing something, and the fact that they were willing and considered us with whom they were going to share their value, that's the gift, I believe, is that they think of us in that way, that they wanted to share the value that they have. I
agree. I couldn't agree more. Well, there you have it, folks.
Well, and thank you, Judy, for being a part of our show this morning. It's
yes.
great to see you, and I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. And I hope to see you soon, if not before the 4th of July. We usually do a big family gathering the 4th of July. So
okay.
Hopefully I will make my way back.
You're playing into that small town stereotype.
I am. That's all right. I'm okay
with
that.
You guys get around the maypole and sing and dance? And
we have too many people to be around a maypole. Okay. We probably are under the awning or under a little building. But yes, we get around and there's usually some singing and sometimes dancing. Not a lot of dancing, but sometimes dancing.
Okay.
So lots of stories to be shared through that time.
I'm sure. So, sounds great.
It is. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us. If you have one thing that you'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments. We welcome that because we know it'll add value to us. And there might be somebody out there just looking for exactly what you have to share that might help them take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. We know that if you're listening to the podcast, there is no place to comment. So we have created two, actually. One, if you're a LinkedIn person, go to LinkedIn, the Renegade Success Network for Leaders LinkedIn group. If you are a Facebook person, join us in the Ring of Renegades and you can share your one thing there. And while you're there, you might find that thing that you've been looking for that'll help you get unstuck and figure out how to take your next step along your pathway to the success that you desire. So we look forward to seeing you in those groups. If not, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time for our next episode of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you and receive someone's gifts, even if it might be challenging to you. Receive it as a gift. You never know.
The results could change.
That's it.
All right, go out and make it a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.